Hey everybody, Peter Maravellis here. I hope this finds you all safe and well. On behalf of City Lights booksellers and publishers, I'd like to welcome you to City Lights Live, the virtual reading series that continues in the footsteps of our in-store calendar during the time of the pandemic. We continue to celebrate the works of authors we know and love with readings, discussions, and forums throughout the fall season and into the winter. I'd like to take a second to remind you that City Lights Bookstore has actually reopened its doors to the public. We're following strict San Francisco Health Department guidelines, and we aim to make your visit to City Lights as safe as possible. You'll be once again able to browse our stacks. Our business hours are 7 days a week from 12 noon to 8 p.m. We've worked very hard to transform the store for the age of COVID. The entrance is now on the Broadway side of the building. Please take note, it's at 271 Columbus now. The original entrance is an exit only. We do encourage everybody, please do wear a facial covering while visiting. We're making efforts to keep things as safe as possible for everybody. As many of you know, City Lights is a publishing house as well as a bookstore. We continue to publish in the grand tradition of Lawrence Ferlinghetti's seminal Pocket Poet series. We continue to produce on a seasonal basis new books of poetry, fiction, literature and translation, and nonfiction, informed by a very progressive political outlook. We have new titles out from people like Stan Cox, Juan Felipe Herrera, a very timely book by Alan Hirsch about our current electoral crisis, as well as new poetry from Uchi Nduka and Sophia Dalin. We've also just released a new memoir by Jean Dave, a friend of the late Paul Celan, titled Under the Dome, Walks with Paul Celan. So to learn more about our upcoming events and the books that we publish, please do visit our website. It's www.citylights.com. You can keep up on all our activities via social media as well. We have a presence on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, we're there. So tonight's event is being brought to you by City Lights in conjunction with the legendary Semiotext books. Semiotext is an independent publisher of critical theory, cutting-edge fiction, philosophy, art criticism, activist texts, and nonfiction. They've produced books by such influential writers as Kathy Acker, Jean Baudrillard, Julia Cortázar, Michel Foucault, Julia Kristeva, Paul Virilio, many, many others as well. With us tonight are two really awesome writers that are no strangers to City Lights. We've featured them both before and are huge fans of their work. Joining us will be Derek McCormack and Mattilda Bernstein Sycamore. Both have books out from Semiotext. Derek's new novel is called Castle Faggot. It's got an afterword by the ever-groovy Dennis Cooper, also Zach Farley. Derek lives in Toronto. His previous books include The Show That Smells, Haunted Hillbilly, and The Well-Dressed Wound, all published by Semiotext. Mattilda's new book is called The Freezer Door. Mattilda is the author of 3 novels and a memoir and editor of 5 nonfiction anthologies. Her memoir, The End of San Francisco, won a Lambda Literary Award in 2014, and, might I add, was published by City Lights. So she is both a Semiotext and a City Lights author. We also published another title by Mattilda. It's called So Many Ways to Sleep Badly. Her previous book to the one being celebrated tonight is called Why Are Faggots So Afraid of Faggots? Flaming Challenges to Masculinity, Objectification, and Desire to Conform. And this was an American Library Association Stonewall Honor book. Her novel Sketchtasy was one of NPR's best books of 2018. She makes her home in Seattle. So Derek and Mattilda, welcome back. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Shall I start?
Yes, please. We are ready.
Okay.
I'll minimize myself.
Thank you, first of all, to City Lights. This is my 3rd reading. My first one was with Dennis Cooper and Benjamin Wiseman and Martha Kinney, and that was 42 years ago. And then I read with my dear friend Kevin Killian 8 years ago, 9 years ago. I think that's up on YouTube somewhere. I hope it is, because I sang, and I sang really beautifully during that performance. I sang a Jimmy Rogers song. I want to thank Semiotext, and I want to say how happy I am to be reading with Mattilda. I've been watching her performances from her book tour. She's on a book tour, which is amazing in pandemic days, and she's been reading something different at every stop, and I've been trying to watch them all, and They're great. So, but I'm going to start. I'm going to be the opening act. I'm reading from Castle Faggot. Castle Faggot has 4 sections. The first section is a map of Faggotland, which is a theme park for faggots. The second part is a photo souvenir book. It has blank spaces in the pages that represent what would be photos, what are photos, what were photos of Faggotland, and especially Faggotland's main ride, which is Castle Faggot. It's the dark ride, the darkest ride in Faggotland. The third section of the book is an instruction manual that you receive when you buy the Castle Faggot dollhouse, and you can buy it at the souvenir shop at the theme park, or you can send a bit of money and a whole whack of box tops from Count Chocolog cereal. Count Chocolog is the character, the main character at Castle Faggot and at Faggotland. He lives at Castle Faggot with his friends Boo Brownie and Frankenfudge, and there are some others. Count Frou Frou is one of them. The fourth section of the book, I'm going to read from the fourth section. It is a novelization. I don't know if anyone else likes novelizations, but when I was a kid, I would buy mass market novelizations of TV shows I liked, like Bewitched, or movies I liked, like Brubaker with Robert Redford. I remember that one well. So this is a novelization of a TV special that's really just an advertisement for Faggotland, for Castle Faggot, and for Count Chocolog cereal. The book as a whole is dedicated to Jack. And this is Roo Doo Doo, a novelization. Intro. It's Paris, or a playset of Paris. A bat shits on cobblestones. The bat's a puppet. The shit's a puppet. Count Chocolog strolls down the street. He's a puppet. He sings, "Somewhere beyond the box tops, here am I. I'm the Count from the breakfast cereal that you buy. Somewhere beyond the box tops, here I am. I'm the star of this special television program. Somewhere beyond the box tops, I am here. I'm in stop motion like Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. Someday I'll slay that red-nosed clown and Santa too and flush them down the sewers. My show will air at Halloween and Christmas time, and I'll be seen by billions of viewers. Somewhere beyond the box tops, here I'll be, way down deep in the..." He slips in shit. Shit! Shit is Trey Trey Perry. Section 1. Die! Count Chocolog chucks a shoe at a mirror. The mirror never sees it coming. The Count has no reflection. The Count's clothing has no reflection. Count Chocolog? Boo Brownie blows in. The mirror, the Count says. I hate the mirror. You don't need a mirror, says Boo Brownie, bobbing around like a blue balloon or the ghost of a blue balloon. You're perfect. Friend? Frankenfudge clomps in. The Count's mad at the mirror, Boo Brownie says. How can I see how fucking perfect I am, the Count says, if I can't see how fucking perfect I am? You don't need mirror, says Frankenfudge, a pink Frankenstein. You have friends. That suit suits you. Chocolate good color for Count. It's Castle Faggot, the ballroom. There's a bust of the Count. It's brown. There's a fancy chandelier. It's brown. There's a fancy mirror. It's broken in bits. What would you know-nothings know about it? The Count says. Ghosts can see themselves in mirrors, even though they're see-through. Monsters can see themselves, even though they're unsightly. Things would be much clearer, the Count says, and I'd be a chicer serialier with a mirror, a mirror, a mirror. The Count sings. I could pick a pod of cocoa, I'd pin it to my coat so I'd have a boutonniere. I could wear a real bow tie and not a bat about to fly if I only had a mirror. The Count's bow tie flies off. It's brown, a brown bat. I could quaff my coif up so high, I'd comb it up to the sky or to the chandelier. I could wear Estee Lauder, put on lots of paint and powder if I only had a mirror. Boo Brownie bobs about the chandelier. He holds bits of broken mirror in his hands. He's a Boo miroir. Oh me, the Count sings, I'd like to see my Limoges en Versailles. I'd look at myself and never look away. I'd look and look and look all day. If I had a magic miroir, I'd slip into a peignoir or something else that's sheer. A la Marie Antoinette, I'd see myself in my toilette if I only had a mirror. Cha-cha-cha, chocolate. Frankenfudge disco dances across the brown broadloom. Dance doesn't describe it. Heel to toe, heel to toe. He walks the way all stop motion animated puppets do, like he's learning to walk in high heels. Alas, the Count sings as the music slows. I do not have a mirror because a mirror is a mere joke on a vampire. A friend is a mirror with hair, Boo Brownie sings. Friend tell friend what to wear, Frankenfudge sings. A hairy mirror, the Count sings. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. He collapses like a push puppet, which he's not. The mirror's a puppet. It's shattered in stop motion. The shoe's a puppet. Aren't all shoes puppets? Aren't all mirrors? Frankenfudge gives him some fudge. There's a mortal, Count Chocolog says, flinging the fudge aside, a magical mortal, the most magical mortal of all. This wizard will make me a mirror, for there is nothing he cannot conjure. Shakespeare wrote of him, or Spencer, or someone. Who gives a fuck? So long as he makes me a fucking mirror. The Count's bat comes back carrying the wizard. He doesn't look like a wizard. He's a boy with bad skin and beady eyes and a barrel chest. I'm the boy. I'm not magical. The monsters don't know it yet. I'm a puppet. I don't know it yet. I am Count Chocolog, the Count says, the mascot of the breakfast cereal that bears my name. My face is frightened. The Count sings, Bienvenue au Roudoudou. Boo Brownie and Frankenfudge sing. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la. From now on, you'll be history, the Count sings. You'll be history, you'll be history. We'll glorify you every day. You'll be a bust, be a bust, be a bust in the Mirror Musée. The Count. Boo Brownie, welcome the wizard. I represent the Boo Brownie brand, the Boo Brownie brand, the Boo Brownie brand, and on behalf of the brand of Boo, I wish to welcome you to Roo-Doo-Doo. The Count. Frankenfudge, do you have something to say? I am the Frankenfudge friend for you, friend for you, friend for you. And if you want to be friend of Frankie too, I wish to welcome you to Roo-Doo-Doo. Boo Brownie and Frankenfudge are cereal mascots too, the Count says. Boo Brownie's cereal is blueberries and chocolate. Frankenfudge's is strawberries and chocolate. They don't sell as well as mine. They look bad in the bowl, the toilet bowl. Boo Brownie turns poo blue. Frankenfudge turns poo pink. Count Chocolog, he says, the cereal is chocolate, and as such makes poo the darkest, dankest shade of brown, poopier than poop itself. It's poopy like a chocolate log, like a log inside the butt of a beautiful boy. Like a beautiful log in the beautiful butt. Enough about my love life. Wizard, say something magical and mysterious. Puppets. I shrink away. You're puppets. You're puppets. Puppets. Fade to brown, then fade in on. I come to. I fainted before the fade. A puppet's in the room with me. He's dressed like a 19th century French poet. Marshmallow, I say. No, he says, I'm Marshmallarmé, Stéphane Marshmallarmé, a puppet and a poet and a puppet, a poo poet. You're a puppet too. What do you mean? My left eye falls off. I shriek. Poopy, I say. No, he says, I said poupée, it's a puppet en français. I'm a puppet in French? My eyes plastique. Dutyland, you're a puppet in Dutyland, in Faggotland. It's the faggiest land in Dutyland. Scary, I say. No, he says, I said sucré, les monstres sucrés. The Count, Boo Brownie, Frankenfudge, all the mascots for monster cereals are here. They're not real, I say. My eyes a choking hazard. They're real poupées, he says. Count Chocolog rules Puppet Paris. He rules it with Bataille, who brought you into the store. Bataille is his bat and his tie. Bataille blows by. Count Chocolog lives here in Castle Faggot, he says. He dines at La Mâche Merde. He shops at Le Mal Marché. It's the department store for puppet monsters. It's not Bergdorf Goodman, but Bergdorf Badman. It's on the Rue du Doux. Bataille takes a big shit. Besides being a poet, I'm a fashion critic, Marshmallarmé says, shit on his shoulder pad. I pen and publish a paper devoted to doings at Le Mal Marché. La dernière mode, I call it. The Count? What a wit. He calls it La derrière mode. Marshmallarmé. I cover the haunted hair salon, he says. Antoine is the salon's chef coiffeur. Frankenfudge has his hair done there. He's a strawberry blonde, but without the blonde. Boo Brownie has his hair blown out and dyed blue. Sometimes he wears bangs, a bob, or a bouffant. He always wears a boater. Hair's dead matter. Hair's the corpse of hair. The Count's worn the same style always, hair piled into a peak like a Dairy Queen dipped cone or a Hershey kiss. How does it stay up, I say. Chocolate mousse, he says. I cover the haunted cosmetics counter, he says. Chocolate is the counter's chef cosmeticien. Frankenfudge doesn't need blush, but he wears it anyway. His head's a strawberry. He has seeds. Boo Brownie's bonkers for blue eyeshadow. He looks like he's made of blue eyeshadow, like he's the ghost of blue eyeshadow. People expire, cosmetics do too. Monsters wear makeup that's gone bad. Testers teem with germs. After a vampire's used your lip gloss, it's garbage. The Count prefers an evening palette, brown. Who makes monster makeup, I say. Cover Ghoul, he says. I cover the haunted couture atelier, he says. Frankenfudge will wear anything pink. Boo Brownie's a ghost in a blue shirt. He's the ghost of a blue shirt. What size shirt does a spiritualist wear? Medium. Coco Chanel sews suits for the Count. He wears her exclusively. She's more than his seamstress. She's his screamstress. Like all vampires, he can become a bat. When he changes into a bat, his suit must shrink to size. When he changes back, his suit must change back too. The cloth's woven from vampire bat fur and a lot of elastic. Who sews Boo Brownie's shirt? I say. Balenciaga, he says. The Count lives in Castle Faggot, he says. He prays at Sacré-Cœur Cathedral. It's sacrilege. He's despicable, contemptful of his fellow monster mascots, contemptful of the staff at Le Malmarché, his coiffeur, his cosméticienne, and his couturière. He reserves his cruelest contempt for the children that consume his cereal. He murders boys. He loves to murder boys. He's the most murderous cereal mascot since Gilles de Raisin. He didn't murder you yet, though, he says to me. Pourquoi pas? Thank you.
Derek,
I need a drink.
You are the most magical mortal of all. Thank you for that. And now I'm going to unmute Mattilda, who must be stretching at the moment. Are you back? Ah, good.
Oh, I'm right here, yes.
Okay. Hey, everybody, buy books.
Yes, please support City Lights, buy our books. We love it. Derek, I want to ask a quick question, actually, because in your reading, I was struck even more by the dimensionality of the text, you know, with the singing, with all the reversals, with the sort of physical orientation of the world that you're creating, with all the shifts that happen so fast, you know, between what is taking place, what people are experiencing, who is involved, you know, the humor in it, the language itself, the wordplay and the puns, and also the sort of satirical literary references. And I wondered if maybe before I read, if you want to just talk for a moment about how you created a world that feels so like solid in a certain sense. I think even more when you read it, I have that sense that there's layer after layer after layer. And I wonder if you would just want to talk a little bit about that layering and the process of creating that.
Oh, that's very nice of you. I guess my answer is, I don't have much in my life. So I accumulate obsessions. I excavate obsessions from my childhood. I reactivate obsessions. I indulge the obsessions in daydreaming, regular dreaming, shopping on eBay, and filling my house with crap that has to do with my obsessions. And whenever I start a book, it seems to be the way now with my books is that I have disparate obsessions. So Mallarmé's fashion magazine, monster cereal, Rankin and Bass musicals, fashion. And my job, which takes years, is to find a structure that can contain all the stupidity that I need it to contain. And it doesn't have to be smart, and it often isn't. It can be puerile, it can be ridiculous. But I need to close them all in, and they can't burst out and it can't leak. So I'm basically making a play set. It's like a Weebles play set where nothing can fall down. Everything can wobble, but it can't fall down. Oh, I would add like Richard Hawkins upside down sculptures. I mean, it's the usual shit that kicks around in my brain, but and I find one of the easiest ways to do that is to think of myself as a kid at my grandparents' house, playing with the set, but also being the film crew that's directing the set, all the things that children do in their minds, you know? And so then you can put in stage directions, you can put in like film techniques, you can get right into it. You can put a song in that hopefully doesn't break too many copyrights or grab the attention of lawyers. And so I think you're being very complimentary with like saying it's multidimensional, because to me, it's just like a toy box, you know, like it's it's not as tidy as multidimensional. It's just a mess, but that's me. So, and then like you, I know that you edit and edit and edit, and I do too. Like, you know, I will edit easily 3/4 of what I work on until it, till the paragraphs start to look like play sets themselves or chandeliers. And then the challenge with reading this one is there's so many songs, but, it's really easy to sing at home when I'm drinking. Like, it's really hard on a stage, but it's really easy here. And I said to my friend Tony today that I have a voice like Judy Garland's about an hour after she died. So I don't think that's the worst thing in the world.
I love that.
Thank you for asking.
Of course, of course. Now I'll read a little and then we'll get a chance to talk some more. So I'm going to read from about 39 pages into the freezer door. When you turn the music off and suddenly you feel an unbearable sadness, that means turn the music back on, right? When you still feel the sadness, even with this music, that means there's something wrong with this music. Sometimes I feel like sex without context isn't sex at all. And sometimes I feel like sex without context is what sex should always be. When you write something broken, is it important to feel broken? When you write something unbroken, is it important? Even just sitting next to someone who casually puts his hand on my leg, this means so much to me. Yes, he has a boyfriend who's sitting right next to us, and this is okay too. What I'm saying is that I want my body back, my whole body, my whole experience of the world. I've spent so much time trying to find the places and spaces where I can interact without feeling broken, but this hasn't worked. I can no longer live in queer worlds where I'm intellectually and emotionally present, but I don't have an embodied self. Sometimes when you don't write about something, it goes away. And sometimes when you don't write about something, it never goes away. This guy on the radio says he writes in a sense of elation in the morning. A sense of elation for several hours every day, very early. Maybe I misheard him. He said getting direction, but I thought he said getting erections. When I was a kid, I made up happy lyrics for sad songs. This is called denial. One thing about language is that sometimes it hurts, or it doesn't hurt, and then you do. Acknowledging inconsistency doesn't have to mean embracing it, or shouldn't, I don't think, but most people don't seem to realize this. The desire to sound reasonable when the only way to say something meaningful is to sound unreasonable. My mother says that whenever she doesn't hear back from me for a few days, she feels like that time when I went missing for 24 or 48 hours. And then I appeared in the driveway and she took me to Suburban Hospital to see if I'd had a concussion. I don't remember this at all. I do remember that every weekend in high school, I would leave after screaming fights with my father, who didn't want to pay for a cab or books or a restaurant or whatever it was that I wanted. He just wanted to scream. I would leave for as long as I could. But my mother doesn't remember my father screaming at me. She remembers my father screaming at her. By the end of high school, I stayed at my father's office every weekend, even when I didn't have anything to do. It was a studio apartment where he'd added a wall to create a waiting room for his patients, with copies of Time and New York Magazine instead of the New Yorker like the other psychiatrists. I'd always wanted to live in an apartment. When I stayed at my father's office, I could almost pretend I had my own place, with a bathroom in 2 parts and the tiniest kitchen. I would study the way my father's pens were arranged and the exact placement of every tissue box. But my friends weren't as careful. It wasn't as easy to conceal a cigarette burn in the carpet as it was to move the tissue box back. So that's when my father found out. But then I said, do you really want me to drive home drunk? That was my argument, the argument that worked. I needed to beat my father on his own terms because those were the only terms. When someone at a bar compliments my outfit and then says he used to be more daring, but then he got older, I'm guessing he thinks I'm a lot younger than he is. But then he says he went home for the holidays and found this 9 Inch Nails t-shirt from when he was in 6th grade. And he must have worn it for gym class because it still really smelled. And if he was in 6th grade when he had a 9 Inch Nails t-shirt, that means he's at least 4 years younger than me. Some markers of young adulthood are dated, and some are faded. So I try to get to the bottled water scene in Heathers, but it's too scary when Christian Slater shoots one of the jocks and then the other one starts running shirtless through the woods. I don't like homophobia, even when it's supposed to be a critique of homophobia. The tyranny of masculinity must end. Also, the masculinity of tyranny and tyranny. I watched Heathers in high school, but continued to drink bottled water. Was this an act of resistance? It turns out the joke is about mineral water. They plant it with a suicide note so it looks like the guys were gay, along with rouge and porn and Valentine's candy and a photo of Judy Garland. But how would high school kids in 1988 or 89 understand Judy Garland as a symbol of homosexual bonding? I'm still not sure I do. Before I spent the weekends at my father's office, I would meet him there after school so he could drive me home. I would wait upstairs in the library next to the rooftop pool, in the library where I would jerk off to the Dream of New York and Interview magazine, come all over the pages. Then I had to find more pages until I discovered the cruising bathrooms down the street, and then I would go there almost every day. I didn't call it sex because there was no way I wouldn't deserve to die. If I didn't feel it, then maybe I would win. All these guys older than my father, craving what was between my legs, but did anyone ever speak? Maybe a note on toilet paper wrapped around a pen and passed underneath the bathroom stall. But no one ever said, do you need help or hope or a hug or somewhere to hide or information, a way out or a way in, a key, an escape route, a path beyond brokenness, a field of sunflowers, a record-breaking snowstorm, nourishment, an end to the nightmares, a new way of living, a gap in the sky, a break from desperation, a future beyond hollowness, some new music to listen to on your Walkman in bed. I don't remember the first time I saw the pen, but I do remember the clenching in my chest, the nervousness before unlocking the stall and following the route of the guy who'd written the note. Eventually, I was the one to pass the pen first, leading guys into the stairwell and all the way to the bottom of the parking garage where the stairwell ended and we almost had our own room. Once, I brought someone to my father's office. I didn't know how cute he was until he followed me and my note all the way down the stairwell, but then he said, do you live around here? He wasn't that much older than me, but he was old enough to think I was old enough to live alone. My father wasn't in his office, so after a silent walk that felt like days, we were naked on that analytic couch, naked together. It was over too fast. And then he was the one who looked away. I remember one guy who insisted on driving me home, so I let him drive me the 3 blocks to my father's office, or to the lobby anyway. Speaking of lobbies, he gave me his card. He was a lobbyist. That's what it said. He told me to call anytime, but I didn't know what that would mean. Was he risking it all for the fever of underage cock? Or did he want to offer me something I may never find? I'm reading another book of nostalgia for New York in the 70s. Rose Kennedy walks into the bookstore and asks you to choose the photos for her memoir. This will never happen again. But uncritical consumption of critical engagement is still uncritical engagement. The problem with true confessions is there aren't any. But it's amazing how many ugly 60s buildings have beautiful wood floors. Sometimes you slip and say something you don't mean to say. And this is the best and worst moment. My mother calls to tell me about a play where a straight guy invites a gay guy into his bed after he's been assaulted, because the gay guy can no longer sleep alone. And I'm thinking, of course the straight guy is the hero. But then my mother says, it was one of the most beautiful things I've seen in a while. A while, she says it again. And I'm crying quietly, so she doesn't know. And afterwards, she says, what did you think of my description of the play? Thank you.
Now you can hear me clap.
Yay.
Thank you, Mattilda. So we were thinking that Mattilda and I might ask each other some questions and then hopefully pull some questions from the chat or comments or criticisms or whatever you want. But I thought I'd start because I wrote down a few questions for Mattilda because I saw some our books haunting each other a little bit. And I thought I'd ask about it. And also, Aaron, your comment made me laugh. I wanted to say that. Mattilda, here's my first question. Who is your ideal audience?
Well, it's funny that you asked. So of course, Derek is asking that question because in the freezer door, I have this part where two great straight white male authors are in conversation, and one of them asks the other, he says, who is, they always ask this question, right? They're always the same, right? Who is your ideal audience? And then the other one says, everyone in my ideal audience is dead, right? And then he in the book, I don't say this, but even after that, he said, Virgil, Homer, it's like, come on, honey. And I mean, this was in a room of like a beautiful old theater, hundreds of people who had paid like $25, each, and he's telling them that they don't matter, right? And so that's the kind of hubris behind the great straight white male authors. And I would say for me, my ideal audience is anyone who's going to read my work and engage on the terms of the writing itself. So yeah, that was an easy question to answer. What about you? Who is your ideal audience, Derek?
Oh, I'm happy to have anyone fucking read my book. Like, I think it's a very acquired taste. So if someone's acquired it, I'll keep feeding it. I'll do anything.
I was struck by something you said before, that you wanted to read first so that your nephew could hear you before his bedtime.
Yeah.
And it sort of echoed with something that Dennis Cooper and Zach Farley say in their Afterword, where they say that it's the ultimate children's book. And I wonder if you want to talk about thinking of your work as a children's book in sort of, because it's hard when you read the book, it's hard to really, of course, but children have, children, first of all, are crueler than anyone because they learn from adults. And second of all, they have the most, grotesque, they could like turn any adult, like, because they don't have, they're not yet censored. But I guess my question for you about that would be like, how do you and do you not see this as, a children's book broadly speaking? I know that it's never going to be marketed for children, but how, yeah.
Well, I don't know, Hetty, is that true? We have to do a board book, don't we? I mean, part of it is that my routine is that I always imagine myself as a child writing, although it's kind of sad because I'm a 51-year-old child writing in the house of my dead grandparents. So it's you know, as the years goes on, it gets a little creepier, the scenario in my head of writing. But having my nephew Jack, to whom I dedicated the book, has been great because he indulges me in all my basest humor. Like, we talk about poop and pee so much. And I thought to myself when I was writing this book, you know, if I get to a section that wasn't really snappy, I think I'll add shit or piss to it. And it always made it funny. And I knew it would be funny for Jack. But you're right, they have, you know, when they learn swear words, they're so powerful and so interesting. And you know, you can tell they whisper them at school and they try them out with you. And also Jack has like a child's imagination. I remember when I was writing the book, I had a bunch of different titles. And I was talking with his father about the movie Call Me By Your Name. And Jack said, I would call my movie Call Me By Your Fart Name. And I thought that was like the greatest Hollywood title, if any. And last night, Jack said to me, when I was telling him about my novel, and he said, my first novel is going to be called I Pooed in a Urinal for 10 Years. And I just wrote it down. I mean, there it is. I don't have to do any work at all. He's handing me gold. So yeah, I'm maybe a bad, I'm surprised I get to still see my nephew, but I fucking love that. I love that level he's at. And I love that excitement for those words. And also, you know, I read a really nice review of my book today and they said, oh, you know, McCormack says faggot so many times, you think it would lose its sting or its meaning. And I thought to myself, actually, I still get called a faggot on the street and it never loses its sting. Like, I'm at 51 years and when you get called a faggot, you still feel it. I still feel it. Like, I don't know if that's on topic. That's my answer. Okay, I'm gonna ask you one. Great. My favorite line in the whole new book, and I love lots of lines, is this one. Oh, the long red coat that flares at the bottom like the sound of music. It's in a section where you're talking about coats you've loved, coats that might have disappeared or moved on. And I love that line because you didn't say, oh, the long red coat that flares at the bottom like the coat Maria wears in The Sound of Music. You said it flares like the sound of music, which I think makes it beautiful. I thought a musical does flare, you know, the whole movie flares. And it also interested me because I don't remember anyone wearing a red coat in that movie. And that is something beautiful that happens in your book, is that you pass into dream and out of dream really fast. And I thought that was an example of that. I mean, it was like factual. It sounded true. It wasn't true. Was it a dream? Was it a memory you were misremembering? Was The Sound of Music something in your childhood?
So yeah, The Sound of Music. So I love that you say that, because I do think in writing the book, it is taking place very much in the present moment, you know, of the book, in walking around in Seattle, in what's happening. But the way I wanted to write about dreams is that they cast doubt on that present moment, right? And so, and they allow, like the ideal dream, right, is when we just wake up and we're still in it, right? And that's one of the things I'm always let down by when I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, what is this, right? But I think in that particular line, yeah, it's that feeling of being in the field, right? And like everything is swirling. And that's the thing I remember from The Sound of Music more than anything, like as a child. And so whether there is or is not a red coat, I can't confirm or deny that rumor. There is that feeling, right? And that flare, like you said, and like we could hear also in your reading from Castle Faggot, where you're using the flair of the musical, right? So yeah, so I love that, and I love that that's your favorite line. That's a really subtle line in a certain way. So
Oh, it's really complicated line, but it comes really fast, and it holds a lot, you know. And it also reminds me that, like, my book is clearly haunted by musicals, by The Wizard of Oz and Judy Garland. And your book is too, but in a more unsure way, I think. You have a character, Adrian, who loves Judy Garland, and you're not sure why. And you seem sort of to be buying the explanation, her explanation. And then Adrian also talks about loving Miss Piggy and Mama Cass and how these women transmute pain into power. And you're sort of on side, it seems. And then there's even a line, but there's quite a critical line about, you know, how we have to actually change the world and not dream. You can't just click your heels, you know, and call it home. You have to make home. So I sense this ambiguity about Oz and musicals and those dated icons of faggotry in the work. They were there, but they caused questions for you. Is that true? Is that something?
Yeah. Oh, I think that's totally true. I mean, I think, well, it's interesting because Adrian is about 10 years younger than me and has the icon of someone, you know, like about at least like 20 years older than me, or 10 or 20, you know. And so I'm sort of fascinated by it because, like I said in the excerpt I just read, and I loved that it connected to what you said at the very end of your reading, right? Like about, like I have never really, it took me until very recently to even understand why, you know, these old icons of Hollywood would mean anything deeper for people. I mean, I don't mean, I understand why they mean something in this sort of grandiose, you know, like, oh, like inhabiting that sort of power, right? I understood that, but I didn't understand the deeper sense, you know. And I think, and I think I am, you know, and for me, I think I didn't, you know, I grew up definitely feeling like I was trapped and that I would never get away, and trapped by, you know, an abusive family, trapped by, you know, societal homophobia, trapped by kids at school, you know, who despised me, trapped by sort of like an upper middle class upbringing that imprisoned me, you know, within that dream, or the dream/nightmare of upward mobility. But I don't know why, but I never, I guess I didn't have an escape, right? The escape for me, eventually the escape was creating a way of like not letting that world matter, right? And so, but I don't know why, but I never was drawn to like icons, you know?
Right,
and
right.
so I guess I am always questioning that. But in the book, I think that question you said at the end, like about home, right? Home is a central question, right? And home, I think in all of my work, because it is and is never there, right? It's like, it is in these moments, but can it never be in that broader sense, right?
Right.
And I think in a way that is what these icons are providing people. I think that maybe I just went from being the traumatized kid who could not speak to the kid who was never going to let anything get in the way. And so I didn't have an in between. I mean, yes, there were things I like, just ridiculous things that I would like any like male vocalist with like bleached white hair. I was like, oh my God, like, you know, outsider, I am ready. You know, so I had things like that, of course. But I, you know, like Howard Jones. There we go. That's a really
Wow.
I was like Howard Jones. You know, or like, so, but I never really believed in them beyond that. And so I guess I have always questioned that, you know.
Well, it resonated with me because I love Judy Garland. I came to Judy Garland late in life, but the pain into power thing really troubles me, because what I love about Judy Garland is she was such a fucking good singer, and that for a moment everyone loved her. I mean, she wasn't a tragic figure for most people. For the world, she was just a super talented person, you know. And so I fight with that legacy that she's left in the gay community that sort of overshadows just that she was fucking good, you know. But I want to ask, do you mind if I ask you another thing?
Yeah,
and then we can look at the okay. Tell me about Mirrorama, because I would love to go to Mirrorama with you.
Sure, Mirrorama. So Mirrorama is the corner for anyone who's familiar with Seattle. It's unfortunately, well, in the book, I'll talk about it in the book. So whenever I'm walking in the book from, it's sort of on the one of the gay bar kind of strips, right? And you go from between the Cuff, which is the leather bar, and Pony, which is a bar that is sort of a hipster bar that plays a central role in the book, as a place where I figure out that I have to go into worlds that I already know are corrupt in order maybe to find what isn't, right? Which is that actualization of desire. And often on the way back or on the way, there's this corner, which is 13th and, is it Pike or Pine? It's Pine, 13th and Pine. And there's a mirrored window. It's like a whole corner of this old like industrial building. And every time it was like and in Mirrorama, you know, you can see the reflection of the street lights, you can see yourself. And I would always just want to dance, you know, like dance, Mirrorama, Mirrorama. And like you could see people like just about to make out. You could see people arguing. You could see yourself. And I always had to just stop and enjoy Mirrorama. And in a way, those are the moments when I believe in home, you know, or in the city, or in that dream of that unexpected experience that will change everything. It's expected and unexpected. You never know what to expect with Mirrorama, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as I predict in the book, but it hasn't yet happened, Mirrorama would soon no longer exist. And in fact, Mirrorama has been torn down. And what is there now is, I wish I knew the name, I'm gonna have to look it up, but it has like a white entryway that's it's like a white prison. You know, it has like a 3-story gate that's all white. It's literally like, and then you can enter into the courtyard and it advertises that every unit has purified air. So that's what replaced Mirrorama.
I'm so sorry, because I loved the thought that you were the proprietor, maybe one of two or three people you were proprietor of a club, the occupant of a club, the DJ at the club, and it was on the street. I love that you turned that. And also, I mean, mirrors play a weird role in mine too, in that the vampire can't find a mirror to reflect himself. And then it turns out that when there's shit all over this kid's ass, he thinks it's a mirror because he sees brown. He knows he's brown. The shit is brown. Brown is a mirror for brown, he says. And I like that we both had an illogical, improbable mirror scenario. And it also made me think of how much you love dancing. And I think I can't go to gay clubs because they won't let me in. I'm not good looking enough, but you go into these clubs and you dance. Are there mirrors? Do you like dancing with mirrors?
Oh yeah, I like dancing with anything. I mean,
With anything.
I go and I'll just dance by myself, you know, and because for me, dancing is when I feel most alive.
Yeah.
And if I can get to that place, it's like nothing else matters. So these like shady queens, these obnoxious, straight acting, you know, gay, you know, masculinity tragedies, like everyone looking at me like, what the hell is that girl doing? Like they don't matter anymore, you know? And for me, it's funny because that is embodiment, and that is when I want to engage with people. And it feels to me like, why are you at a bar, you know, with music, unless you're gonna dance, right? And so it is a scenario that happens a lot in the freezer door, where in the moments when I feel the most present, there are also the moments when the world doesn't matter, right?
Falls away.
Yeah.
Because those moments made me feel, my sister who's watching, Melissa, when she was a kid, she had a music box. When you opened it, there was a little ballerina popped up and danced in front of 3 mirrors just on her own. And today I thought, that's Mattilda, that's her. She's dancing. There are mirrors. She's not even looking in the mirrors, but she's just having a fucking blast.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing.
And, you know, that's a beautiful thing to read. Okay, that's all my questions. I'm going to stop grilling you.
Well, perfect. I'm going to ask you one more question because you brought it up, that question of reflection, right?
Yeah.
And so, and in the book, I feel like reflection is, in one way, there's the reversal, right? So there's the reversal of language, there's the reversal of morality, there's the reversal of the living and the dead, there's the reversal of fun and murder, perhaps, you know, there's the reversal of, I guess, yeah, desire and mortality. And in that, you're also bringing, well, this is going to be a layered question. So you're bringing these fears and stereotypes of faggots, right? You know, one of them being shit. Of course, shit is the pinnacle of glory in the book, right? And so that's, you know, so that's another kind of reversal. And so I wondered if you want to just talk about how reversal plays in creating this kind of upside down or inside out or flipped over world.
Oh my God, that's such a good question. I'm going to be honest, the roots of that are in a really innocent and preposterous question, which I started in my last book, The Well-Dressed Wound, which is, how do vampires shop? I just could not figure out how vampires could try on clothes. And in the book, which is mostly about AIDS and also Martin Margiela and also the Civil War in America, I tried to imagine a boutique. I mean, I was sort of dying at the time. I was dying of cancer. I survived, fortunately. But I tried to think, okay, I have to imagine a heaven, and what do I want? Well, I want a really expensive store where maybe you don't have to pay, and you can get really beautiful clothes. But the question of where do vampires shop and how do ghosts try on clothes and see themselves? And my last two books, unfortunately, like, Semiotext is a super incredible press and full of amazing theory. And I have spent 8 years working out, how do you try on clothes when you can't see yourself in a change room? Actually, that even goes back to the show That Smells, where it's set entirely in a mirror maze, and it's the home to vampires because no one can see the vampires coming in a mirror maze, which is I think sort of redolent of Orson Welles as well. The scene in the funhouse in his movie, which I can't remember the name of, Touch of Evil. And then the reversal, the reversal, I think, is less important to me than something you said, which is I guess it is a reversal, the upside downness. You know, I thought a lot about the upside downness, and that frankly was the inspiration that I got from Richard Hawkins' upside down sculptures, from this magician Voltaire, who built upside down houses. From when my mom was dying, my sister and I stayed in our hometown and took care of her until she passed. And I went to a junk store and found a book from Mattel called The Upsy Downsies, which was a very short-lived psychedelic toy line. And when I opened the book, I remembered we had it. And more important than the fact that we had it and it was a nostalgic memory was that the downsies in the land, the text was upside down. And I thought it was so remarkable. And I thought about underground worlds, and I thought of what, you know, I thought that I'm an underground writer, right? But what does that mean? So I took it literally. I'm an upside down writer. Gay culture is underground. I took it literally. It's upside down. It's not underground. And you know, and so then I just started to see the physical things I could do with that. Like the section 4 that I read from starts with these pages of O's, which are to me just Cheerios or cereal bits, you know, and the figures in the premiums you find in the cereal box are upside down when you pull them out. They're not right side up. And you know, I think you ask like a very good question, and I could go back to like my school learning and Bakhtin and stuff, but yeah, I think that I think faggots in my mind do two important things. They work upside down, like vampire bats. I think that reflection for them is a different thing. I forgot the other thing. But what we're dealing with is like, oh, and also that there's something in faggotry that has a very, very close connection to death and burial and entombment and encryptment. So all those things just turn into everything had to go upside down and everything had to be flipped. So I don't know if that answers it so much as just shows you a little glimpse into my head.
Oh, I think that does answer it. And I think also that perhaps is a commonality, you know, in our work, in the sort of invocation of faggotry as a potential outside of either or norms and beyond respectability, beyond acceptability, beyond the conventions of desire and normalcy, beyond straight or gay normalcy, and you know, into its own imagination.
I might also say, and I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I also feel like that invocation includes a bit of panic and sadness that it might be gone.
Yeah, I think there's always that fear, absolutely, that it, well, especially, you know, just with assimilation, you know, which has destroyed the possibilities of troublemaking and of challenging the status quo, and not just gay assimilation, but also even queer assimilation, like queer being assimilated into kind of its own normative way of thinking. And so I think, yeah, challenging all of those hierarchies always becomes important in every moment, and more challenging as the days go by, for sure.
Yeah.
Should we, I know we're supposed to be done in a little bit. Should we just take a look? Let's take a look at let's take one question from here, and then we'll just, here's one for you. Do you want me to read it? I'll read it to you.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of the weird blending of high-low. Oh, interesting. This is kind of like my question. So let's see where it goes.
Okay.
Like a lot of the weird blending of high-low, innocent, perverse, child, adult is more common in the visual and performance art than in literature. Okay, so we have some examples. Mike Kelly, David Altmage, Eva Warhol. And your books seem almost uncomfortable as books. Pages with just exclamation points, maps, scripts, smells. Do you hate literature? But okay, then there's a parenthetical. This question has layers too. So first part, do you hate literature? Let's just go there. I think we can each answer that. Then we'll get to the second half.
Yeah, I fucking hate literature. But more important than that, to reverse it, I think literature hates me. So I think we have a mutual hate. And I don't know why I'm engaged in it. I guess because what else am I going to do? And I know that sounds flit, but you know, my friend Matthew Stadler recently pointed out to me, and it sort of shocked me, that all my books are disguised as a way to escape literature. You know, like Wish Book was supposed to be a department store catalog. The Haunted Hillbilly was an EC comic. The Show That Smells was a Todd Browning movie. The Well-Dressed Rune was a seance at Barnum's Museum. And this one, I've really gone whole hog. This one I do not think of as literature. I think of it as service writing. I think of it as Faggotland. The operations manager in the PR department came to me and said, we need maps, guidebooks, and we need a script for some crap TV show we're going to do. And the way I finished it was to think, yeah, first of all, I'm going to do this because I need work. And second of all, I got to do it fast, because you can't take 8 years if you're writing service material for an amusement park. What that means for me is that I do the work and people rightly don't take it seriously as literature. And I don't want to take it seriously as literature, but when it's not taken seriously, I'm wounded. So, so I'm fucked either way. You know, the only way I can do it is to imagine it's against literature. And then I'm shocked when I'm excluded from literary worlds. And you think I could have resolved that by now. I haven't. And in fact, I seem to be doubling down on running away from literature and wanting it to notice me. So yeah, I'm just not bright, or I haven't grown up, or the doing of it as something outside literature is sustaining enough for me that I have to keep doing it. But Aaron, that's an amazing question. So thank you. Thank you.
And I think I'll add one tiny thing, which I say in my acknowledgements at the end. I think that Semiotext itself and the legacy that we're both joining, in a sense, is destroying literature to create our own literature, right?
Yes.
You know, and so we don't want like to be part of that canon, which is colonialism, which is you know, imperialism, which is the destruction of the creative impulse. And we don't want to create our own canon either. We want to destroy it and create something, you know, more that expresses complications, you know, in whatever way that we want to.
Yeah.
And so I think, oh yeah, go ahead.
I want something that can slip away before anyone pays serious attention to it, but that is serious. So I don't know.
Well, I think there's always that contradiction between wanting the attention because you want people to actually acknowledge. For me, I guess I'll say, I want people to acknowledge the work on its terms. And that's something that is happening right now, which is kind of shocking, right? And, but it's so hard for that actually to happen. It hasn't happened at this level, you know, ever for me. So yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Maybe we can see if there's one more question, but I think we answered the main one. Maybe we'll just ask Peter to post that link to buy some books.
Oh wait, can I ask you one more? There's a question here from Dennis's iPhone. A question for Derek, but I'm also going to drag you into this, Mattilda.
Okay.
Fashion is such a big part of your work. Even when you seem to be taking the piss out of couturiers, there seems to be a fondness for their work. What's your relationship with clothing and designer labels? On a practical level, I love designer labels. I loved Jean-Paul Gaultier when I was a teenager, and Yohji Yamamoto and Comme des Garçons, and I loved Martin Margiela. That was the great love of my fashion life. I was raised sort of upper middle class in a small Ontario town, so that upper middle class is a joke to even talk about it. But in my little lumber town, it was something. I have since fallen completely into poverty. And I am the underclass. I do not buy expensive clothes anymore, but I think about fashion all the time, and fashion constantly disappoints me in that no one deals with it the way I want them to deal with it. No one theorizes the way I want to deal with it. No, that's not true. There are a few people who do, but for me, it's something very slippery and very important and very philosophical. And one day, I think if I live long enough, I'll write a book about fashion and why and how it's tied to faggotry and how it is all these things. It is about death and encryptment. And I always loved about designer fashion that it's interesting in Mattilda, in your book, you thrift and you wear these great outfits, and I see you do it in real life, and it's a real expression for you of something. And what I loved about designer clothes was that it immolated my identity, that I could give myself over completely to a designer's vision, that I could be nothing. And I think, and Mattilda, I actually have a quote here written down from your book. Maybe it's a fashion thing, but it's also trauma. Can we ever separate fashion from trauma? Can you tell me about the trauma?
Sure. I mean, I think, well, it's interesting because I think for me, yeah, I think I am the opposite of that, in the sense that I want clothing to allow me to express myself on my own terms. So and that's actually a really great, and perhaps that is, so can we ever separate fashion from trauma? To me, it goes in a couple of different directions, right? But one is that I feel like let's say in gay culture, right? The only way that masculinity is not the only ideal that trumps everything is if it's about fashion, right? Because someone who's interested in whatever the latest designer is, walks in the door, not going to mean anything to the masculinity casualties, but to people who are interested in fashion, which is dominant worlds in, say, New York or LA or, Paris or, certain like cosmopolitan gay cities. And there even are, of course, the masculinity couture versions of that same thing, right? Where it's like, oh, you're wearing that Prada outfit, but no one knows it's Prada, right? Because it's denim, it's really masculine. Or it's like invoking the, gay clone culture. It looks like you bought it at the thrift store, but it was $5,000, right? So that's masculinity. So, but I think, can we ever separate fashion from trauma? I think fashion is always, whatever version of fashion, I think it always is, at least it is trying to cover trauma. Like my version of fashion, which is to try to create my own thing out of like ragged, weird, contrasting, dramatic, bright, and cartoonish sort of layers, or the version of fashion you're talking about, like, did you say self-immolated?
Yeah.
Or that version of fashion, maybe a third version, which is perhaps the dominant version of fashion, which is just like status and class, right? Like all of them are trying to hide trauma, whatever it is,
Yeah.
And also just the trauma of living in the world, right?
Yeah.
And so, so I guess I mean it in all those different ways, probably a few others, but I don't want to go on too long about that. But that's a great question.
And I want to say that my friend Natalie Atkinson is watching that, and she's a fantastic fashion writer, very concerned about history, the artisanal craftsmanship, small scale. And I was a fashion columnist for years with Natalie and for my friend David Livingston, who's one of the smartest writers I've ever read. And there's such a shortage of smart fashion writers. I've been lucky to know a couple of them. But it's, fashion is something that resists smart people, though occasionally smart people are very drawn to it. So anyway, okay.
I think there's a question about whether we have events coming up. So I'll say I am on a virtual book tour. So I have 3 events coming right up. Tomorrow I'll be at Women and Children First virtually in conversation with T. Fleischman. And then next week I have another event in San Francisco at the San Francisco Public Library. That's in conversation with C.A. Conrad on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday I'll be in New York at the Poetry Project in conversation with Maggie Nelson. So luckily we can go to all of them.
I will,
because they're all virtual, and I read a different part at every time. But yeah, Derek, what do you have coming up that people should be aware of?
I work tomorrow at the store. That's it. I don't have anything lined up, and maybe not. I won't have another book out, so that might be 15 years from now. I don't know.
We're ready to wait 15 years.
But I am happy to watch you. I'm going to watch them all, and yeah, if someone wants to have me do something, I mean, I'm gorgeous and I sing beautifully.
Absolutely.
I should be,
and you have great toys.
I should be in more demand, don't you think?
Absolutely. I'm sure people are going to ask you right after. So,
I don't know.
If you don't have Derek's contact information, contact City Lights, and City Lights will put you in touch.
And if I ever wake up from my nap, I'll answer. I swear to God, I will. But tonight was such a pleasure being a City Lights and having Hetty here and having you here. And I'm so proud to be a Semiotext person. I'm not proud of much, but I'm proud of that.
Yeah, and thank you for this amazing conversation. And I was going to warn people that it would be entirely in the Queen's vernacular. And I think we have lived up to that.
I love you both. I kind of wish we could create sort of a mythic channel that you can just flip on anytime you want. And it's just the two of you talking for all eternity.
I'm game. I'm game.
Maybe
we're ready. We'll create that with you, Peter.
This has been such a pleasure. A big shout out to Hetty and to Semiotext for everything they do. And tonight's event is actually being recorded. It's going to be posted on YouTube in a few days. So if anybody missed it, tell them to check it out. Also, buy the books. I've posted the links in the chat function. Help City Lights, help Semiotext. This is the time to do it. We're not out of the woods as far as COVID. It's going to be a while. So with that said, Mattilda, Derek, love you both. Thank you all for coming, for being in the green room and having such cool, fun comments. And hope to see you all soon. Be safe, folks. Be well.
Bye, everybody.